I can hear you. I can hear you. Jeff is in the studio today. He is doing something with technology and a ladder. And camera 4 is in an odd position. Do we need it to stay there? Well, I don't want to mess it up. It's not.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your 4 to 5 on this Monday. I'm Tahei Chamois, joined by Eric Chilton, who's also working from home, and Maddie Gardner in studio. You know, this 4 to 5 is an interactive newscast. What does that mean? That means we talk with you, not just at you. So join the conversation by logging on to the live stream on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just search for WFMY News 2. All right, let's get into some headlines of the day, starting in Winston-Salem, because Winston-Salem Parks and Rec is opening some of their facilities today as the city enters phase 2.5. Now, if you remember, Governor Roy Cooper announced that the state was entering phase 2.5 2 weeks ago, but cities are able to set their own timetable for when they open up things, including things like playgrounds, basketball courts, the skate park, and shelter rentals. Those open today. Salem Lake is reopening as well, and those gates will close at 7:30 each night. Historic Bethabara Park Visitor Center opens Wednesday, and that'll be open Wednesday through Sunday from noon to 4. And Cricket's Nest Craft Shop opens Tuesday through Saturday.
Well, we have had an active tropical weather season so far. Hurricane Paulette hit Bermuda this morning with 90-mile-an-hour winds. Now, Bermuda's security minister warned people to stay off the roads there, and the main airport is closed through at least part of Tuesday. All government offices and schools are closed through tomorrow as well. Meanwhile, Sally upgraded to a hurricane this afternoon. People in Louisiana are preparing for landfall. The storm could bring a strong storm surge from Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama state border. So we want to check in with Eric Chilton now. One concern with Sally is that it is a slow-moving system. I'm interested to know more about that. And also, the tropics are kind of crazy right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've actually tied a record for the most number of storms in the Atlantic at one time. This goes all the way back to 1971. So we have 5 named systems out there and 2 that aren't likely to develop, but they're two that we're still watching. So this is the peak of hurricane season, though, almost literally today and tomorrow, like right mid-September. This is it. So let's take a look at Sally, the latest coordinates on this one, and they'll be updating this within the hour. But 90-mile-per-hour winds right now, fairly strong storm. And as Maddie said, the problem is that it's going to sit over the area for a while, because notice that it goes to the west and then does an about face and turns and goes northeast. Well, during that turn, it's going to rain consistently over some parts of southern Mississippi and Alabama, coastal panhandle, Florida. That entire area, especially from Louisiana to that Mississippi and Alabama area right at the coast, could get 15 inches of rain as that system just slowly moves along. Also notice that by tomorrow morning, we may be looking at a Category 2. This will move up, and you're noticing that it's going to the south through central Georgia, possibly through central South Carolina, and that makes us all wonder, well, what will that mean for us here? If you add up the next week's worth of rain, which most of this, of course, is with this system, you're looking at 1 to 3 over the triad, with 1 being in the north and 3 inches in the southern Piedmont. You have to go down towards Shelby, Charlotte, and point south and west to get up to that 2 to 4 standpoint. Quick look at the tropical map here. We kind of did a flat map so you can see what's going on. There's Sally in the Gulf, Paulette, which is heading away from the United States, thank goodness. Renee is just an area of low pressure, but did receive a name because she had tropical storm status at one point. Teddy and Vicky still remain to be seen what will happen with those two. They are moving generally to the west. We'll keep you posted on all this. Obviously, this is the time of the year that most of our weather turns toward the tropics.
All right, Eric, thank you. Well, the Atlantic hurricane season, you heard Eric, it is so active, and it is possible that we could go through the list of 21 names that they use to identify those storms. Now, if we go through all 21, any other storms would be named using the Greek alphabet. So names would start with alpha and then go to beta and so on. There are 24 letters in the Greek alphabet that can be used. Now, listen to this. We've only had to use the Greek alphabet one time to name storms, and that was back in 2005.
AstraZeneca is resuming human trials for its coronavirus vaccine at Oxford after pausing for several days. Now, those trials were paused after some of the participants experienced a side effect there. The university released a statement saying in large trials, it is common for some participants to get sick, and each case needs careful evaluation. Oxford University says they are committed to the safety of participants, and 18,000 people worldwide have received the vaccine. And Pfizer says they could have results on their coronavirus vaccine trials by late October. The company head says while results may be ready by October, it doesn't mean the vaccine will be ready for distribution by 2021. If results show the vaccine is effective, the company is prepared to apply for an FDA approval. Pfizer partnered with BioNTech, enrolling up to 30,000 people in phase 3 of its clinical trials. It wants to expand that, though, to 44,000 people. Pfizer is the only U.S.-based company who's working on a coronavirus vaccine that rejected federal funding for trials. The company head says if the vaccine proves ineffective, they are prepared to take a financial hit. Pfizer says it chose not to accept federal funds to keep the company protected from politics. Back here in the Triad, Walgreens in Greensboro is hosting a flu clinic tomorrow. They're doing that along with the Evergreens Lifestyle Center. So medical professionals are pushing for everyone to get a flu vaccine this year. Dr. Stacy Blythe with LeBauer Primary Care spoke with WFMY News 2. She says it's best that we cover the bases that we can this season while waiting for the coronavirus vaccine.
Since we don't and probably won't have a reliable COVID vaccine for at least several months, we need to cover what piece we can just so people are less compromised.
So that clinic is happening from 2 to 4 tomorrow at the Guilford County Senior Resource Center in the lower level parking lot. Bring your photo ID and a copy of your insurance card if you have it.
Let's turn now to your 4 to 5 roundup. 2 teenagers died and 4 other people were hurt after a crash in High Point. Police were called to the intersection of Johnson Street and Oakview Road around 8 o'clock last night. When officers arrived, they say they found one car leaning against a pole and another car facing south in the northbound lanes of Johnson Street and Westfield Street. Police are still investigating and they have not released many details at this time. Los Angeles authorities are still looking for the person caught on camera shooting 2 deputies in an apparent ambush. Those deputies were shot multiple times while they were sitting inside of their patrol vehicle. Surveillance video shows a person running up to that car and pulling the trigger without being provoked. The person then ran away. The deputies were able to radio for help and both had surgery. They graduated in the same training class and were sworn into office just more than a year ago. At least 35 people are dead because of wildfires on the West Coast. Families are now returning to what's left of their homes and getting a first look at the damage. Fires destroyed more than 4,000 houses in California alone. Officials in Southern California issued more mandatory evacuations because of the Bobcat fire, and smoke is creating terrible air quality levels from Southern California to Canada. More than 1 million acres have burned within a week in Oregon. Lawmakers are soon to introduce a bill in honor of Vanessa Guillen, a Fort Hood soldier found dead in June. The bill, called #IamVanessaGuillen, would allow active duty service members to file sexual harassment and assault claims to a third-party group instead of going through a chain of command. Guillen's family called for changes in the military after claiming she'd been sexually harassed but did not report it out of fear of retaliation. Fort Hood says an investigation found no evidence to support those claims. The bill is expected to be announced Wednesday at noon.
A new study suggests a connection between coronavirus cases and eating out at a restaurant. The CDC did a study looking at 314 adults who showed symptoms and went to be tested. Now, the participants were questioned about their activity over the last few weeks. Most participants, whether they tested positive or not, said they went to gyms, hair salons, and in-home gatherings, but those that tested positive went out to eat twice as much as the others. The CDC says although the study has limitations, it still raises a question of safety. Research from several states were included in that study. On that list, North Carolina. WFMY News 2's Ben Briscoe is digging deeper into this study, and you can learn more coming up on WFMY News 2 at 6.
All right, so I asked you on Facebook, does this make you second guess going out to eat or not? And people are riled up about this topic. Let me tell you, take a look at some of the comments here. Charlie says, you're also much more likely to have a wreck while driving, but we haven't stopped that, have we? Beth says, absolutely not. These instant, in air quotes, studies are fraught with statistical problems. One stats class in graduate school taught me what good research is versus bad research. There's no way they have enough accurate data, she says. Robin says, I haven't eaten in a restaurant since all of this started. I do get takeout, though. Jennifer says, have eaten out several times. We'll continue to do so. All tables are spread out 6 feet from everyone, and everyone has been very respectful and keeping their distance from each other. She did a hashtag to support local. Maury Kennedy says, I have eaten out nonstop and will continue. I am not being irresponsible. I'm living my life as close to normal as possible. And Connie Turner says, I don't know if I'll ever feel safe eating out at a sit-down restaurant again. She went on to say that I do order takeout to help support locals also. So people were very strong with their opinions on both sides of this issue.
Yeah, Eric, I saw your Facebook post, got hundreds of comments on this. And I'm excited to see Ben's story, like Tahisha mentioned, because you take a look at that sample size, just more than 300 people to represent the entire country. That makes me want to know a little bit more about what methods they use to come to this conclusion. I think that is an important caveat that we have to mention with this one.
Right, 314 people. They went to the gym, hair salon, and also a restaurant. Now, I do get the concern about there could be elevated concerns at a restaurant, right? Because maybe you go to a restaurant and you're eating out with people that do not live in your household, right? And you take off your mask to eat and you're talking to each other. So you are spreading germs, I guess, if you will, between households. So that's where I get that. But I do want to hear more of this study and get into some of the particulars.
Right, and we've heard about the dangers of going out of your so-called bubble, right? The people that you've been around for a long period of time. So Tahisha makes a good point, but I know that our local restaurants, at least the ones that I've heard about, are really doing a good job trying to space those people out, making sure people are wearing masks when they're not actually eating. So again, I think this all depends on how comfortable you are in these situations. All right, this is certainly a topic we want to hear your opinion about. Join our conversation on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Use that hashtag 4to5, and we will see you in the chat. Welcome back to your 4 to 5. Schools across the Triad are taking a closer look at how to get students back in classrooms, and part of that planning includes school support staff or non-classified employees. The Forsyth County NCAE chapter says these workers, I'm talking bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria staff, office workers, and teachers' assistants, are all essential in making that transition.
They're important all the time, and especially if we're going to reopen our schools. And you think about it, classrooms are not going to be able to hold as many people. So you're going to have extra people in different areas.
So a lot to think about here. The county's NCAE chapter is calling for a pay increase for non-classified staff in the state's budget. Val Young says even 3% would help, but ideally they'd get $15 an hour.
A lot of them are living right there at that poverty line. They're not making enough money to even take care of their families. However, they're paying the same taxes we pay. They're having to feed their children the same way we have to feed our kids. They still have bills to pay, but they're not getting enough money to fund themselves. So you'll see them working 2 and 3 jobs.
Governor Roy Cooper released his budget proposal, and it includes money for non-classified employees in the form of a one-time $1,000 bonus. He asked for $50 million to make that happen. Young says bonuses are merely a Band-Aid and don't go toward a worker's retirement. Now, I reached out to several state representatives from Forsyth County. Senator Joyce Krawick says she's from the 31st District, and she says there really isn't much that they can do right now because the General Assembly is not in session. But she did tell me there has been a lot of conversation about a pay increase for non-classified workers. Legislators are not scheduled to return to Raleigh and talk about a budget until January at the time. Now, in the meantime, you can learn more about the push for a pay increase and read Governor Cooper's full proposal on our website. More of the 4 to 5 is coming up right after this. Stick around.
In case you didn't know, it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and one mother whose child is receiving chemotherapy treatment said she didn't realize how many children were actually diagnosed with cancer each year until her family had to experience it firsthand. That's why she and her family are raising awareness, plus they're advocating for more funding for research.
Good. No. Rocky Top. Wrong. Until Noah was diagnosed with leukemia 2 years ago, I didn't even know September was Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I didn't realize how common childhood cancer was.
For the Saleno family, battling cancer has been a big part of their lives.
Each bead represents something Noah's been through. So each poke, each hospital stay, he has over 2,200 beads.
Every day for almost 2 years, 5-year-old Noah has done daily chemotherapy treatments, all while fighting to raise awareness for a disease that's taken some of his friends.
Over the last 2 years, he's had 7 friends pass away, and that's a lot of kids.
According to the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, just 4% of federal funding for cancer research is geared towards kids. The Salenos went to Capitol Hill to ask for more.
Our kids deserve more than adult chemo. Our kids deserve more than all the long-term side effects that they'll face as they continue to grow.
This year, Noah's finally getting a glimpse of normalcy.
He was able to start kindergarten, and he did his full days, and he's made friends, and he's doing all the precautions just like all the other kids.
And will soon be cancer-free.
49 doses of chemo left.
A milestone the Saleno family wants other kids to reach too.
And there's so many kids with cancer. We can't find a cure without the research, and we can't do the research without the money.
City leaders in Alexandria, Virginia passed legislation requiring face masks at public indoor and outdoor locations. Sounds much like what we have here in North Carolina, right? But here's the difference. Anyone who violates that order could face a fine of up to $100. That would be enforced by authorities. So it goes in effect October 1st. Now, the section of the city charter gives leaders the authority to exercise powers, quote, not expressly prohibited by the state code or constitution. Face coverings can be removed in certain situations, such as religious gatherings, eating, or exercising.
Okay, so I asked you on my Facebook page if you thought North Carolina should fine people for not wearing a mask. Again, an overwhelming response on this question. Most people do not think fines should be enforced in North Carolina. Let's take a look at what you had to say. Matt Kimball said remove the law. On the other hand, a law that is ignored with no consequences is effectively not a law. Dawn Hicks says she was in Miami Beach a few days ago and they have a $50 fine for not wearing a mask there. Deborah says, I think it will overburden law enforcement as they are the only ones that can issue a civil infraction. Melissa Cook said, nope, that's ridiculous. The executive order states that there are exemptions and that you cannot question someone who states that they have a medical exemption. So how can you justify fines? Bonita said, yes, don't spread your germs to others. So a few people, I'm talking like 5 out of 130, said yes, that they support fines for this. And again, it would be up to local law enforcement, and it is up to them in Alexandria to enforce this. And I just feel like they have enough on their plates.
Yeah, I mean, even here locally, it's hard to get people to wear the masks, and there is no fine, in place in terms of enforcement, right? It's not the business's responsibility. They have to call police, and then you're a trespassing charge. So there's just like a lot involved with this. I don't know if a fine will make a difference. We'll see. I mean, $50, $100. Usually, sometimes it takes affecting someone's paycheck to really make a difference. But with this mask topic, I don't know.
Seems to me like they're more than anything, they're just trying to make a statement that, because again, we talk about enforcement. That's kind of tough to carry that out. And then if you do one, you can't do another one, or you should do the other one if you catch somebody. I think it's really more of a, hey, we're serious about this. And if you're just being blatant about it and disrespectful, then they might do that fine. But otherwise, I think that's going to be tough to enforce. We'll keep you posted on that. You weigh in on Facebook. Let's talk about our forecast. We've got to get to that because we do see changes coming up for us. Could get wet here for a while. It just depends on which days you're talking about in the 7-day. But if you look at current readings, this is comfortable. That 79 to about 81 range across the Triad and central North Carolina. We'll take that. Lows tonight, 68 degrees. Could see some patchy fog toward morning because as that temperature drops down and we already see some moisture out there and clearer skies, then yeah, we could end up with that morning fog. Partly sunny tomorrow, a few late day storms not out of the question, and we'll keep that mercury up to about 83. Look at the rain. The majority of the rain is to the west, everywhere from Wilkes County all the way down through Hickory and headed down towards Charlotte. Again, just generally unsettled for us. Long range forecast, we'll have that for you coming up in just a little bit.
Good afternoon and welcome back to your 4 to 5. I'm Maddie Gardner alongside Tahisha Moise and Eric Chilton this afternoon. You know, one of the greatest things about the 4 to 5 is you are involved. We want to chat with you on our live streams. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let us know what you think about the news of the day and our questions of the day, and we will join you in the chat box. Well, hard to believe, but we are 50 days away from Election Day. President Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden spent their day campaigning.
Yeah, that's right. And both candidates focused on the wildfires out west and, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. CBS News' Natalie Brand gives us a closer look at what the candidates had to say.
President Trump traveled to Sacramento, where he received a briefing on the devastating wildfires across the region.
It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Hey, well, I don't think science knows, actually.
The president has suggested poor forest management is to blame for the historic fires along the West Coast. But during a campaign speech from Delaware, 2020 Democratic nominee Joe Biden blamed climate change.
These are interlocking crises of our time. It requires action, not denial. It requires leadership, not scapegoating. It requires the president to meet the threshold duty of the office, to care.
President Trump's trip to California was a short detour before wrapping up several campaign events in key western states. This evening, the president will hold a roundtable with Latino supporters in Arizona. The latest CBS News Battleground Tracker poll shows Biden slightly ahead in the Grand Canyon state, but the president within the margin of error.
We're meeting with a very great group of people, Hispanic people, who have done really well.
Meanwhile, an organization aimed at getting out the Latino vote for Biden announced it's spending millions of dollars on bilingual mail and political ads.
This country is starving for good leadership right now.
The Biden campaign has also dropped new political ads targeting black men in hopes of recapturing turnout numbers similar to those of former President Obama's totals.
Vote, vote, vote.
The former vice president cast his ballot in Delaware's primary Monday morning, with just about 7 weeks left to the general election. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
You know, in our forecast, we are watching temperatures. They're not all that uncomfortable, really. Our overnight lows at 68 tonight and then 83 tomorrow, partly sunny. Do see a chance of a late day shower or thunderstorm tomorrow. We're getting a little bit of that even today. If you look at our radar, most of it is back to the west, southern Wilkes County, and then technically out of our viewing area, but heading down toward Hickory and Catawba County. That's where we're seeing most of the heavier showers, a little bit in southern Guilford County and southern Alamance as well. If you look at the broad picture here, generally unsettled, not anything major. Now, cooler, less humid air is trying to move down from the north, courtesy of the high pressure you see there. Stationary, or the cold front rather, acts a little bit like a boundary, but notice Sally moving into the pressure up our way. The question still remains exactly how much, but we think that'll be kind of a tight gradient from maybe an inch of rain in the northern parts of the Piedmont to 3 inches down toward Montgomery County. So, and that's over the next 7 days. So not in a tight window there. However, you'll see that rain chance tomorrow in the late daytime period. Not all that great, but we'll hold it at 30%. We get drier, much cooler with 76 and 77 for Wednesday, Thursday. Rain starts to move in a little bit on Thursday, 50-50 shot on Friday. That could be our day with some heavier showers. In the weekend, we gradually clear back out, 40% Saturday, but a 20% Sunday. Look at those 70s. That is fall-like with overnight lows Sunday morning and Monday morning in the 50s. Time to get out the jackets before the end of the weekend.
Let's turn now to your 4 to 5 roundup. Senator Ted Cruz is asking Attorney General William Barr to investigate Netflix's latest film called Cuties. Cruz says Netflix is potentially breaking federal laws and claims that the movie sexualizes pre-adolescent girls. Cuties has been getting backlash over the plotline for weeks now. The film tells the story of an 11-year-old girl going against her conservative family traditions as she explores femininity. The movie's director says she wanted to do a story about how young girls handle self-image in an age of social media. Netflix, though, is standing by their decision to air Cuties, saying the film is a social commentary against the sexualization of children. TikTok will select Oracle as the company to help keep the app active in the United States. Oracle beat out Microsoft in a deal. Now, a company spokesperson confirms TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, submitted a proposal to the U.S. government for approval. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said in an interview that TikTok's global operations would create more than 20,000 jobs in the United States once a headquarters is established. The company says the deal should resolve any security concerns. You likely remember the Trump administration threatened to ban TikTok by September 20th, citing security risks because China owns the app. Elon University ranked among the top 100 schools in a U.S. News and World Report. Their Best Colleges Guide is officially out, and the school ranked number 2 for excellence in undergraduate teaching program for the second year in a row. Elon ranked among prestigious colleges and universities, including Brown, Georgia State, and Princeton.
Making an impact in your community is so important, and many times it doesn't take much. Today, the United Way of Greater Greensboro hosted their Community Speaker Series, where they raise funds to help families afford childcare. Well, I had a chance to speak with ballerina Misty Copeland about her life and ways to end poverty and homelessness.
I think it's important for us to see one another as human beings, that everyone's going through something to some degree. Every person is one paycheck away from being homeless or houseless. That's the reality of it. And it's not any one person's fault. It doesn't mean that they should be treated as pariahs. And I really think that it's about, supporting one another and seeing each other, in your communities as your family, as your brothers and sisters.
She also touched on being a role model in the dance world as being the first Black principal ballerina for the American Ballet Theater Company, and also the importance of mentorship. And Eric and Maddie, if you are not familiar with her story, she started ballet at the age of 13, went professional a year later, and she was in and out of motel rooms growing up, so she really rised through the ranks. And she says she knows that there are a lot of little girls that are watching her, so she knows how important it is to be a positive role model and know that her place there in the dance world is so important.
Yeah, Taisha, I cannot wait to hear more about your conversation with her, because I've been a big Misty Copeland fan for a number of years. She really changed the game when it comes to representation in the theater of ballet. Now that little girls can look to her and say, someone who looks like me is doing this, I think it's really amazing. So I can't wait to hear more about this conversation.
It's also amazing because you hear a lot of girls who start way earlier than 13, and for her to start at 13 and then jump to the professional ranks or to competitive, dance, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. So good for her. She's spreading some good news.
Yeah, and the thing with her story too, she mentioned she had a lot of mentors around her, people who took an interest in her story, and that's a big thing when it comes to being successful in different things. It's all about community and surrounding yourself with people who see that potential in you and want you to be the best you.
Yeah. And United Way does a lot of that in our community, so a fitting partnership there. Well, football is back. Maybe you watched this weekend, maybe you didn't. Many NFL teams are either taking a stand or a knee in a push for social justice. This happened before their games all weekend. Now, most players kneeled, locked arms, or raised their fists. Some even stayed off of the field for the national anthem and the playing of the Black national anthem that will be played before each game for the first week. This is all part of the NFL's new support for players' rights to protest racial injustice. Teams are coming together to show unity. Some team owners are pledging money to social justice issues or offering stadiums as polling places for the November election as part of what they're calling a social awakening.
The Baltimore Ravens honored a teenage fan who died of cancer by filling the stands with more than 570 cardboard cutouts of his picture. Mo Gaba passed away in July at the age of 14. The team called the area Mo's Rose. The Ravens say the cutouts are a tribute to Gaba's positive outlook on life. The teen was diagnosed with cancer at just 9 months old, and he became blind shortly after. In 2019, he was the first person to announce the NFL draft pick written in Braille. Back here in North Carolina, Panthers fans did not allow fans in the stands, which did help businesses with a little boost who've been struggling during the pandemic. Restaurants were allowed to have customers inside, of course, but were only operating at 50% capacity as part of Governor Roy Cooper's Phase 2.5 orders. Business owners say, though, it brought a needed boost, but it's still not the same as before the pandemic.
Grateful that we were at least able to have the 50%. That's better than zero, but it would have been a lot better if we were 100%.
Owners say some fans were turned away after their restaurant reached capacity. Customers did follow safety protocols, and some did have to be reminded of them.
Very interesting, but no surprise that Panthers fans wanted to be around each other to watch the first game of the season. Wish it would have turned out a little bit differently for the Cats, but it's okay.
It was close. They could have won that one. I will say, I was watching some parts of it here and there because I was busy with some other things, but I did notice enough that, I mean, it was a winnable game. I will say this for the fan base, because I know how strong we are, and I'm one of them. But people gather around that whole stadium in downtown Charlotte, every game day. And I guarantee you that, especially if the city of Charlotte kind of jumps in on this and helps with a little planning, if you put up some jumbotrons out there or something, that way the fans would feel like they're at least a part of the game, even though they're not really in the stadium. I think they could capitalize on this and make it something still with social distancing, but there's a lot of parking space around there they could make into kind of a car, like a drive-in type thing.
It's actually a really good idea, Chilton. You can space everybody out and maybe open up some of the streets there so people can keep their social distance. All right, where did you watch the game? Did you watch the NFL this weekend? Let us know in the chat section of Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Just use our hashtag 4to5. Hi.
All right, I am talking about bravery. Why are some kids braver than others? And the research is still out on that.
Welcome back to your 4 to 5. When we think of bravery, we tend to think about adults who risk their lives to help others. But more recently, we've seen stories of children who are risking their lives to save people. In the past few days, an 11-year-old in Oregon is believed to have died while trying to save his grandmother during the wildfires. He, his grandmother, and his dog were all found dead in the car with the boy behind the steering wheel. Now, these stories of bravery got us thinking about kids and bravery. So Blanca Cobb is here to shed some light on that. So Blanca, do we know what makes kids brave?
No, we really don't, Maddie. It's a very good question. So there's a psychologist, his name is Frank Farley. He's a psychologist at Temple University and the former president of the American Psychological Association. He had an interview with Men's Health. And what he talked about is that we don't really know yet, we don't really understand why some people are braver than others. He went on to say that there is not just one profile of bravery. But if you think about it, it could be innate. Think about people who in the acrobatic acts, or the trapeze artist, sometimes it's in the family. One could argue it could be innate or also child rearing. You have to think about some individual traits that people have. Some people are more risk takers, right? Some people will feel comfortable jumping out of an airplane or swimming with the sharks.
So can you teach a child to be brave?
You absolutely can teach children to be as brave as they feel comfortable with. Let me give you an example. So let's say you have a kid who wants to do gymnastics but a little nervous about doing a backflip. Well, that's where parents can come in and encourage their child to do that backflip. And parents can also talk about what bravery looks like. Let's say the parent has a fear of heights, but then they decide that they're going to climb up a ladder, right? So that's modeling what bravery is for their child. Also pointing out who in the community is really brave. We have firefighters, we have police officers, we have people who are serving in the armed forces. And then talking about our own history. If you think about September 11th, we just celebrated the 19th anniversary. All the people who died helping other people, that takes a tremendous amount of bravery and courage to do so. And then talk about what it feels like. What does bravery feel like? Some people don't even think about the fear, they just do it. But for other people, they still feel it, but they continue to push on and do that brave act.
All right, Blanca, thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on the 4 to 5. If you missed any of her tips, you can find them all on our website. That's WFMYnews2.com. Hey, more of the 4 to 5 is coming up right after this break.
Hello, mic check 1 2 1 2 3. Check 1 2. Lovely.
Hi there. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8.
You know, we could all use a little pick-me-up right about now. And Greensboro residents and husband and wife, Bob and Karen Nimchek, have just the thing. Couldn't believe this when I heard about this because they built an interactive walk-through spaceship of sorts in their front yard. That's what you do with a couple when one is an engineer and one is an artist. Take a look. Guys, thanks so much for taking time out to join me today. I have to tell you, this was a childhood dream for me. I've always wanted a little pretend spaceship when I was a kid, and even though I'm 54 right now, I will do with this. I will come to your house and check this out. Tell me where this idea came from. And Bob, let's start with you.
Karen wanted to go and put a misting system out on our back deck. And I don't know if you can see back to my left, there are some clouds sitting on a table. And this is part of a larger project of hers, and she was going to put a misting system in there. And me being the kind of guy I am, I said, I want to do a spaceship instead.
And when he said that, it just worked. We had these parts that he was talking about, and they were perfect. They're the parabolic cones they use in museums and things that if you stand under them, they reflect a speaker onto you and not the environment around, that I had picked up over in Raleigh a few years ago to do a project with. And they were just perfect for like a George Jetson kind of thing. And with the whole environment right now being what it is, having something just a little more fun for people when they're out walking and trying to get away from everything, it just seemed like the right thing to do.
And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how do I make this waterproof? How do I make this kid-proof? How do I make this, et cetera, et cetera? And while I'm going through the engineering side, Karen's going through the artistic side and doing all of the programming to make it look like how she wants it.
Well, it's a really good combination because the artwork I do is really technical. I do a lot of programming, and I designed this, but he'll make it work and not stop.
Well, guys, I think it's incredible. I cannot wait to get out there and see it myself. Thank you for doing this. So my first question was, do you have an HOA? I did ask them that, and I asked them what the neighbors think, and Bob had a great answer. He said actually our neighbors have been super supportive. He said one of them said that, well, thanks a lot, Bob. Now you permanently changed the walking path for all the neighbors because everybody wants to go through this thing. Kids love it. They said they even thought they had a water leak out front for a while. They're like, what's this coming from? They realized it was everybody going through there and hitting the buttons and making the misters go off. So they're going to add to it over the next 2 weeks, they said, and we'll wait and see what they come up with. I love it.
Such a fun thing to check out if you are in the neighborhood. I think she hit the nail right on the head. You know, people can go out and walk right now. That's one of the safest things you can do, and to have this to stop by on your way is pretty neat.
I talk about creativity all the time and how even in a pandemic, people are finding ways to put smiles on people's faces and be creative. And this is definitely right up that alley. Such a great addition to that neighborhood.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I sure. We'll let you know what they add on too, folks. Let's take a look. I wanted you to show the radar, let you see that first. The heaviest rains are in the western parts of our state, really back toward the mountains, but southern Wilkes County getting a little bit of that. Also, Ashe and Watauga counties seeing some shower activity. Overall, we're just kind of generally unsettled. The situation that we'll see over the next several days is that we watch for those rain chances to go on the increase. Now, we'll be cooler, lower humidity, and not as much rain in the short term. But once we get toward the weekend, that's when things are going to change for us. I want you to look at our 7-day forecast. Hey, we're mid-70s for the most part as we head through really most of the work week. Dropping down, though, Friday with that heavier rain, 50% chance with the remnants of Sally moving to our south, 71. And how about a high of 69 and 70 for Saturday, Sunday? It will be a fall-like weekend. And those overnight lows, there's a chance in the mountains we could see some upper 40s by Sunday morning.
Coming up on WFMY News 2 at 5 o'clock, Guilford Technical Community College closes its campuses today because of a cyber incident. We're digging into what happened that prompted in-person classes to get canceled next on WFMY News 2 at 5.
Hello, mic check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9.
Hi, mic check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Good afternoon, everybody. Mic check 1 2 3 4.
Campuses 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5.
So I was thinking, which I do a lot these days, I'm sure you do too, about the times we're in and how we see a lot of bad things. But it made me remember that when bad is very bad, good gets better. And by that I mean the people that do good things. They step to a higher level when things are tough. And it made me remember an article that I read a while back. There was a bank in Gulfport, Mississippi called Hancock Bank. They'd been around there since 1899. And when Katrina hit, imagine you don't have a house, you just have your loved ones, you barely have the clothes on your back, you don't have any money, any internet, no way of getting things done, no power. This bank told their employees something that I thought was amazing. They said, we want all of you, if you can, to put your personal crisis aside, because they were dealing with it too, to go back to these branches and look for cash. And they did. They looked through drawers of all the branches. I think they said there were like 40-something branches. Drawers on the floors, in the bank vaults, get all the cash you can. They would take washers and dryers and plug them into generators and literally clean the cash. They laundered the money, so to speak, to give out to people that needed it. Guess how much? $42 million given out to people by just writing down their name and social security number. Didn't even ask for an ID. And that's good getting better. I know what you're thinking. You think the same thing I said. Well, people just took that money, whether they knew that bank or not. Which is true, they took it. But here's the staggering statistic. 99.5% of the people that got that money came back to the bank and gave it back once they could, when they started working again. And they remembered what that bank did for them. And that bank, their deposits grew by $1.5 billion after Katrina. That's good, getting better when things are bad. But that's just my 2 cents. And that's your 4 to 5 WFMY News 2 at 5 starts now.
Happening right now, Greenville police are still on the scene of a double shooting. It happened just before 1 this afternoon on Meadowview Road. That's when police found 2 people shot. Both were taken to a local hospital and are in stable condition right now. If you know anything,